Moduls Rīga un Vēlve piedāvā.
The first question is about the definition of jazz and what's classical jazz for you. What do you understand as a classical jazz, and do you want to oppose the classical jazz in some sense?
Oppose. Gotcha.
Well, classical jazz and jazz, I mean, those are categories, you know. I assume when you say classical jazz, you mean before us. You know, there's so many periods in history, and lots of things that are not in history. I have a terrible time defining jazz, you know.
It's kind of, we don't think about that. We just get excited about music and play, you know. And some of our influences are from, I guess, classical jazz. But jazz is a difficult word, and I've said this a million times, but some people think jazz is Duke Ellington, some people think jazz is Kenny G. So jazz doesn't have any meaning. That word has lost its poetic vibrance that it used to have, you know. But we're influenced by a lot of what people call maybe classical jazz, but we're also influenced by a million different other things too, from, you know, African field recordings to hip hop to Brazilian music to you name it, you know. So
I think that's the connection, that's the parallel or connection I see with jazz, classical jazz and jazz altogether, is that we take all of these different musical languages and cultures and blend them together. Right? We love all music, all good music, and so like jazz was born out of, you know, the United States, you know, out of the African field, you know, gospel, European instruments, you know, all of those things, you know, and then it's just constantly combining all those musical languages. That's what we love to do. That's what I feel is my connection to it. I don't know what that's called. I don't want to call it fusion. I don't like that word either.
Yeah, it's a dirty word too. So many words are tough because, you know, they mean something and then they mean something good and then they become bad.
They get commercialized.
I mean, I think the fact that, you know, because the truth is, like, the word classical jazz people use now, it's a funny combination of words. Classical jazz. I mean, but it's common. Classical jazz. We're talking classical. I mean, so it's almost like saying that what happened to classical music has happened to jazz. It's fallen into this style of music that can be preserved, you know, defined, preserved, museumified, you know. And I think for us, we resist that because, you know, I think we love jazz so much. And, you know, the exciting part of jazz, the improvisation, what Billy's talking about, this melting pot. It's always been this melting pot of musics, you know, this combination of, I mean, you know, this combination of Western classical instruments and harmonies thrown through this other prism of, you know, rhythmic, you know, of African music and you know, whatever, all the different things that in America had going on back then. And that's the part of jazz that's exciting to us. And I think that we never, I mean, we've sort of been, we've always been into being independent, but we've never like done anything to oppose. Like, we don't ever want to oppose jazz. If anything, we wanted to try to sort of recreate it from a real perspective that it was ours. You know, like we didn't want to just be regurgitating what other people did. We've always wanted to like keep that spirit of jazz alive. And so what happens is, by us trying to do that, then suddenly we're rebelling against the classical jazz. We're not, but really we're doing it out of real love and trying to keep the essence of it alive in our music from us. Like do what they were doing, not just what they did.
The innovative part.
You know, jazz is a funny word, but I wasn't there when they invented the word jazz, but from what I hear and what I understand, it basically means spontaneity.
It's got a sexual connotation.
Well, absolutely, which also involves spontaneity when it's good.
It means sex.
Jazz, yeah, a lot of things.
But it's spontaneity, and so when you say classic jazz, you're taking the spontaneity out of the original meaning. Because then it's
Classical.
like, well, we figured out what jazz is, and now we can recreate it the way that we recreate a Mozart piece or Brahms. Or
Well, that's what's happened. That's what's happened. Is like now jazz has gone through so many styles that people are just replaying those styles of music and playing jazz. So we don't. That's why we don't even waste our time saying we're jazz, because it's dangerous.
It becomes a very long conversation too.
And we can't stop talking about it. So, I mean, there's also the French critic who said that jazz died with Albert Ayler. You know, there's also that feeling that like that was the jazz couldn't have gone any further, and Albert Ayler was the sort of end of jazz. And you know, to be honest, I don't really care. I see more truth in that, and the jazz kind of reached this incredibly, it returned to this primitive, advanced thing in that music, and that it's really hard for it to go any further than that. But it can go in different directions. And I think what we always try to say is that jazz is about, there's a spirit to it that can stay alive. And it's not about the notes or the form or the rhythms. It's about playing music, it's improvising, creating in the moment, for the moment. And that's all we care about.
Maybe jazz is not about making music or playing music, but it's about exploring music, exploring the boundaries.
It's the I always say it's the language of freedom. Jazz is a language of freedom. It's this, you know, it's like it's designed for everyone to have their own way of doing it. The language itself was originally designed for that. Now people don't do that.
Visual expression.
Yeah, it was designed as this like open-ended thing, and somehow somebody tried to
record
close
companies,
it.
Commercial.
And certain musicians.
Yeah, of course, there's people who do it for the money.
You know, American Idol is for entertaining. The Jujuka musicians are for healing. I mean, that's like there's intention behind that music, and then there's everything in between, right? And then and then the best stuff is like, you know, and then jazz can be both. You know, it's like, I think that's when jazz is at its best. If people are dancing and having a good time, but then there's something deep going on.
I agree. However, I think they're linked. So that like entertainment, to be entertained, is the yearning for the healing. In a far removed kind of way, but it's they're sort of distantly linked, and it's like they're just at different ends of the spectrum where it's become
just a human
separated.
Expression.
You know,
when we speak, when we have a conversation, what's the difference between am I entertaining you, or are we giving you information, are we sharing information? It's all that.
I mean, it's the same way some people say people watch porn because they're yearning for a spiritual experience. I mean, so they're distantly linked, obviously different contexts, but you know, there's the same yearning for connection, you know, whether it's to yourself, to the spirit, or to each other as, you know, society. So it's hard, to me, it gets sticky. It's like they're all connected. You know.
We all know jazz can be the most boring music on planet Earth, as well as the most transcendent. But that's the nature of improvised music, I think. Is like, you know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's, you know, it's revelational, you know. And not everyone can be John Coltrane and have everything that comes out of your horn be a revelation, you know. Not all of us are that lucky. But we fight really hard to keep pushing and keeping it fresh and alive. And that's been our thing all along. That's probably why the only reason we're still together as a band is because when we get together and play, you know, we try to keep it fresh. We change it up. Even if we're playing the same songs, we do them differently. We do some things. We do things differently.
Yeah,
it would have been really easy for us at a certain point to just be a little funky groovy band from New York that does these little groovy tunes, but we never settled into that.
But I think some people walk in probably hear that though. Even I hear sometimes a recording of ours, something I'm like, that sounds like a funky groovy band just playing
stupid
some
funky groovy band.
know?
How do you get titles for your pieces?
They usually come later. Yeah, usually at the very last minute when we have to really come up with titles because the record's being printed, and then some cool things come out of it.
But this is my feeling on that is that we're playing instrumental music, and not everything is some idea or some programmatic picture of a place or a thing. Some things are just these artistic expressions. I mean, Mozart didn't have to name one of his sonatas. Sonata number 1, sonata number 2, sonata number 3, concerto number 1. He didn't have to call it like, you know, Steve's left foot or like, you know, my mama's dirty you know, underpants.
I think he did actually.
Some of them he did. You know what I mean? And there's intermezzos, you know, rhapsodies. There's a whole, I mean, there's a huge amount of music that doesn't have
a descriptive
clever
name,
titles.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
doesn't mean anything for us.
it does. No. So the titles usually come. Like, usually the music comes first, and then we think about, well, wow, what's a good title for this?
Yeah, the music isn't written based on an idea.
It's a feeling sometimes.
A word or a story, really. It kind of comes out of nowhere, and then we put a name on it, but it's
For Lifeblood.
well, yeah, there's some things, but
There's always exceptions.
Yeah.
But still, did you came to the concept of radio legends?
seasonal recordings.
Yeah,
First
we
idea.
decided, you know what, we had just gotten off of a major record label where we put out a record every couple of years, maybe, because that's how they do it. And we were finally independent, right? And what we always said is, man, we can make a record every month if we were free to do it. So we decided in that year to, to do a seasonal recording. You know, go out and write some music, tour on it, and then record it right after the tour. Because also the other paradigm of a record company is you make a record and then you tour on it for 2 years. So we just wanted to, in this way we were being oppositional. We did the opposite. We wrote the music, toured on it, and then recorded it. And that was it. And that,
process.
yeah, a different process, you know. Because music develops on the road, you know. Even if you make a record, you go on the road and play it live, it changes. So we kind of did that first, and then we went and recorded in a very live way. 2-3 days, boom, bang, bing. Ba-dum.
You're still listening to know something new, to get the knowledge about music.
Oh, learning all the time.
And also
so
to,
inspiring. I mean, that's
and to be inspired, like, and just to be inspired, to feel good about
Do you steal ideas?
all the time.
sure. I mean, it's a language.
You borrow. I
Do you
borrow
repeat
that.
do you repeat things we're gonna say?
Yeah, I give them back. I just take them for a little while.
Yeah.
I share. It's like Robin Hood.
To the poor.
Yeah, the poor. Steal from the rich, the people rich with creativity that come up with the ideas, and then share them with the poor people who don't. Entertain them with it. You know, you do the work, you do whatever it is that you work on things and study them, and you absorb. Like, that's the whole thing. Is you absorb material as much as you can, and then when you go to play, you don't want to be prepared. Your preparation is kind of like it's like training. It's like, hiking up a mountain, so that you can walk down the street more comfortably, Or, I mean, you take it as much material as you can, whatever it is that you love, and absorb it, or whatever it is you think you need, and absorb it, and then just go play.